Hello and welcome to Zelda Speedruns. Today we're proud to present you with another A Link to the Past All Dungeons Restricted Major Glitches tournament match. It is Group J, Ninnyz versus Swerb, and I am joined tonight by Foxlisk and Dow on commentary. And how you doing today, gentlemen? And I'm going to set them off, so we should be getting started shortly. And thank you very much for doing commentary tonight. Much appreciated. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So, welcome everybody. We're just about to get started. This run starts off, not too interesting, in my opinion. Actually, it's just a lot of focusing on movement, getting through doors cleanly, not making any kind of big mistakes, and reacting to RMG reasonably. It's our main goals for the first maybe 10-11 minutes of this run, so that's really all we're going to be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice little ease into the game where you start a race and you have a few minutes of just fairly straightforward gameplay to get over any nerves you might be feeling. So these guys, the first thing they're going to do, if you've watched any runs of this category, any category of this game really, before, they're going to go through the escape, the goal of rescuing Princess Zelda. Nothing really glitchy. This is a category that allows some pretty serious glitches, but we don't get to take any advantages of them until after this segment, and potentially after the next segment as well, depending on what the runners choose to do.
Yeah, nothing too crazy going on. If you have watched pretty much any video game, should be relatively easy to follow what's going on here. We are going to get the sword right away, which is kind of, I guess, one of the defining items to Zelda. But we are going to get the spin attack, which they tell us to do, actually, if you play in English, which nobody does. Because
Is that what the uncle is saying?
Yeah, he says hold B to unleash the secret technique, or something like that. But we actually don't use the spin attack too much because it makes Link move slower, which is not what we want in a speedrun. We'll see it a couple times though, just because it does more damage, but not often.
The first enemy that we kill, in all likelihood, will be with a spin, actually.
I hope it's with a spin, even though technically 3/ is the optimal strat. Only if you get like a certain frame rule RNG, and it's only like 1 frame faster. So, but this strat that they're going for, the upspin, is pretty reliable actually. So, why do anything crazy? A lot of this game is really just about doing things reliably. There's a lot of read and react to RNG, things of that nature. So you really just don't want to have any big mistakes for the most part.
Yeah, and there are a lot of big mistakes you can make in this category, especially. It's very easy to get 1 or 2 wrong inputs and suddenly face down time loss of 30 seconds or more.
Yeah.
There's even opportunities to lock the game and have to restart from your last save point, which can be incredibly punishing.
Mm-hmm. We are coming up on maybe the first kind of real hurdle of the run in Ball and Chain Guard. It hits pretty tough for 1 whole heart. The strat, I don't know what strats they're going to go for, actually. There's a few strats. Looks like Ninnyz is going for 8/. Both going for 8/, which is definitely the most dangerous, but is also the fastest strat. When we say fastest strats, usually we're talking about frames, because people are pretty good at this game, actually, and a lot of times what they are trying to save is frames. So, big thing to keep an eye out for as well. But got through it pretty okay on both sides. Didn't take a hit on Swerb. Only took the 1 hit on Ninnyz. Honestly, with 2 health, getting through the rest of Escape should not be an issue.
Yeah, you start to feel a little bit nervous if you're down to 1 heart, and a lot nervous if you're down to half a heart, but 2 is really plenty of buffer for this section. So I guess we can talk about these players a little. We've got Ninnyz here, who's got a 1:16:43 PB, and Swerb, on the other hand, has a 1:19:41 PB, which he's obviously been improving a lot because that's like almost 2 minutes faster than the last PB he actually submitted to the leaderboards. So he's definitely someone to watch out for here. And 3 minutes might sound like a big gap between runners, but again, it's really not in this category. It is very, very easy to lose 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Most mistakes, like the small mistakes in this category, are going to cost you 20 to 30 seconds, but kind of the more common ones can easily cost 2 or more minutes. And really, they're easy to make. Like we're actually going to come up to one in the first 20 minutes of this run, which is really one of the big gatekeepers of the run when you're going for PB attempts or so.
I assume you're talking about Helmasaur.
I am talking about Helmasaur, yeah. It's not an easy fight, so we'll see how they choose to approach that fight, what kind of safeties they might opt for.
Yeah. So speaking of safeties, is the one really big safety that you can get in this run is you can use a couple of glitches in order to get the silver arrows, which are the most powerful weapon in the game, extremely early. And the players who do choose to get that generally choose to get it basically just to be safe against Helmasaur. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get it, and we're not 100% sure what these runners will choose to do, if they want silver arrows or not.
The interesting thing about silvers is that it's almost optimal to get them, because you could also get the gold sword there, except for the game actually checks if you have tempered sword. So since it's going to be a while before we get tempered sword, we can't actually get gold sword early, which is I guess kind of nice, because tempered or gold makes the game really easy. But
yeah, if you could get gold sword when we get silvers, it would be very comfortably the optimal route.
Mm-hmm. Then we wouldn't even need like mitts or anything in the run, I don't think. So
no, I don't think so.
It would be pretty interesting. Actually, we would probably still get mitts because that'd be faster than gloves. But yeah.
So both players getting through with pretty clean escapes. No big issues on either side. They're going to go. So this is the first departure from, if you've watched the any % no major glitches category, we allow save and quit in this category. So they're going to get the Sank Heart or not, which basically depends on whether or not they want to get silvers. And then they're going to save and quit and then walk over to Eastern. So neither player getting Sanctuary Heart here is interesting.
Yeah, actually 3-Heart Eastern can be pretty tough. I know it seems like not a big deal. It's the first dungeon of the game. Who really cares? But we do want to take at least 1.5 hearts of intentional damage in the dungeon, which doesn't really give you much wiggle room in terms of like accidental damage, as we see Swerb get hit. So we do have hearts early in the dungeon that we can grab. So overall damage is not the end of the world by any means, but extra damage in the dungeon is always a little bit scary. Maybe less so for maybe player like extremely good times, but I would say for 95% of players, any extra damage in Eastern is usually cause for concern.
Yeah, it's really scary. There's a damage boost that Dow was talking about where we take 1.5 hearts of damage, and if you go in there with, sometimes you mess it up and you need to take another heart of damage, and then you've taken 2.5 hearts of damage, which means you have absolutely no wiggle room. So it's really scary to get to that point of the dungeon without full health when you're on only 3 hearts.
Mm-hmm. We definitely have a couple of safety hearts. You see Ninnyz and Swerb both pick up the first one right there. It's always a nice one to get topped off. There's pretty much no reason not to take that one, actually, if you've lost any health. But coming into the Stalfos room, which is a neat little room. There's actually 4 Stalfos in there. Both of them, great job. Just 2 pots killed 2 Stalfos, even though there's 4. The game actually spawns the other 2 in out-of-bounds locations. So when you kill those 2, the game just says, hey, you've killed all the enemies that we can spawn, and so you're good to go. Which is pretty nice.
It is nice, yeah. Stalfos are surprisingly annoying to kill with a sword, and getting more than 2 pots in that room would be very slow.
Yeah. And then so here we're really just getting ready to get to the Eastern Big Key. One thing we do want to do in Eastern is get a bunch of arrows. We're going to need I forget exactly how many, 25 arrows, I think, to finish the dungeon. And then also we want at least 8 going into Pod. So we are going to pick up a bunch of arrows. Okay, we can see Swerb had to take that little bit of extra damage.
Yeah. We'll see if he finds a safety heart somewhere else along the way to pick up.
Yeah, there are 2 in that room. They're pretty slow to get, so I don't fault him for not getting those, especially since you're relatively safe for the next few rooms. It is possible to make a mistake, but not that likely.
Yeah. So yeah, so we were talking about arrow count. We sort of, in the last couple of rooms of this, there's a lot of enemies that we kill that can drop arrows. They can only drop arrows, but they only have 50% chance to drop the arrows. And so if all of them decide not to drop anything at you, you can end up going into Pod sort of like freaking out about where am I going to find the arrows I need to do the next dungeon. So hopefully these guys will get lucky and get at least one of the drops. Both is a little more comfortable, but you can get by with just one if everything else goes right.
Yeah, the end of this dungeon is actually surprisingly tough. We see kind of Ninnyz, that Zelda Gamer Room RNG. I mean, you're trained so much to just always shoot down right there. It's hard not to.
That is actually, I think, one of the hardest rooms in the game to do as fast as possible. It's not really hard to get through, but it's really hard to always go fast in that room.
It looks like a pretty good armmost fight from Ninnyz, and Swerve's set up to get a good one as well.
Yep.
Yo, great job from both of them.
Very nice. So we're coming up now on sort of a flurry of glitches. We're going to go back to the Sanctuary after we get the boots, and then we're going to do what's called Death Mountain Ascent, which is we can't actually get up to Death Mountain yet. The game wants us to beat Desert Palace, which is the second Light World dungeon, in order to get a glove. But we're not going to beat Desert Palace for a while, and we're actually never going to get the glove from inside it. We're going to get a different glove. So we use a clip where we get into what's called spin speed state, which sort of messes with your collision a little bit and lets us jump up a wall. And then we actually jump off of the screen and wrap ourselves around the camera in a way that I obviously don't understand very well. And that allows us to get into the cave that takes us to Death Mountain without the items that the game actually wants. And so this is where the RMG rule set starts to really radically diverge from No Major Glitches runs.
Mm-hmm. And we are going to pick up Sankart because Pod is probably the most dangerous dungeon in this category. We do have a few other dangerous ones as well. But between Death Mountain just being kind of awful at all times and Helmasaur King being one of the toughest bosses in the game, the extra health is really... We can see Ninnyz going for this Death Mountain Ascent right here. That was really well done. This is going to take us in Old Man Cave. We're going to rescue the old man. And you can see on Swerve's side, it is pretty picky exactly how you get to it. There's only like a couple of pixels you can stand on to make it work.
Yeah, it's really easy to mess that up a couple times or find yourself landing in a spot you didn't expect, and it's often very difficult to correct. And so, fortunately, it's not the hugest time loss if something does go wrong, because you can just save and quit back to Sanctuary. But fortunately, both of our players have very clean ascents. Now they're going to take the old man to his cave and get their mirror, and perhaps more importantly than the mirror, which we could probably get away without if we really needed to, we also get the save and quit point back up here, which we use many times.
Save and quit spot is great. I honestly don't know. It looks like Ninnyz is just going
himself
straight for... Okay, going straight into Pod. So he's going to basically wrap around the top of the screen, do a couple of inbounds, out of bounds manipulations there, and end up in this cave that's on top of Death Mountain. This cave is really nice because it's actually connected to Palace of Darkness, and he has to do a little bit of bombing, or a little bit more inbounds, out of bounds stuff there to get into actual dungeon itself. Except we're not really in the dungeon. We're in something that looks like Pod, but it's called Cave State. Neat thing about Cave State is you can't like beat the boss or anything. It doesn't spawn any of the enemies because those are all tied to the dungeon, not the actual like Cave State. But it also gives us 255 keys, and we're going to use one right there to kind of save our routing and make routing the dungeon a little bit easier.
And what Swerb is doing on the other side is he is getting these silver arrows ahead of time. So he sort of wrapped the screen around in a similar way to Kiki, to our yeet up to Kiki Cave there. But instead of going there, he used it to place a mirror on a particular location. And now he's doing another clip in order to get back to where he placed the mirror. And that place is right into the Pyramid Fairy's cave. And then we just hand her a bow, and we get back the silver arrows. And then he'll be following in Ninny's footsteps right after that.
Yep. And the interesting thing about this right here is the total time loss of getting silvers is something like 30 seconds, I believe, 30 seconds. It's not too much, actually.
Yeah.
But you lose something like 2 minutes in this Palace of Darkness split, but you're just going to make up so much time over the rest of the run between not having to pick up as many arrows and just kind of destroying everything that gets in your way with the silver arrows, that it is actually really strong. In particular, the Ganon fight at the very end of the run is something like 40 seconds to a minute faster with silver arrows. So a lot of that time save will come very late in the run.
Yeah, it makes a lot of things easier and also quite a few things faster as well as easier. They're an incredibly powerful safety. And they cost, you get them early enough that they are much more, as Dow was saying, it's like 30 seconds or something if you do all the silver arrow stuff, which is like very easy to justify, especially in such a dangerous category. Swerb is now not at enough hearts to bomb himself into the wall, and so unfortunately is going to have to get into that cave again. That is the problem with Death Mountain. It can just do that to you.
So there is a fairy room at the back of that cave, which is probably faster than saving and quitting, but I mean, you have to get past a few main Moldorms, and then it's just getting beat up on Death Mountain. Like, it lives up to its name too often. It's really frustrating.
Meanwhile, we kind of totally forgot to mention Ninnyz doing the hammer jump, which in No Major Glitches categories is sort of a big dramatic trick, but in this one pales in comparison to all the other messed up stuff we're doing with this game. We had a very clean one, got through it nice and quick, not taking any extra damage. He's in great shape. He's got full hearts. He's got tons of arrows. He's full up on bombs. So as long as, and we're about to come up on Helmasaur, which is probably the single scariest part of the whole run. And we're gonna have to fight it with, normally we would have 7 hearts and the Master Sword, but we have to do it with the Fighter Sword, which does not do damage to Helmasaur unless you do a spin. So you have to either spend a lot of time with your sword out, hoping not to get hit, or fight him with the hammer, where you have to run right up into his face and hit him. Or you can try shooting him with a bunch of arrows, which is a little bit safer, but he tends to move and not get hit by them. So there's just really no safe way to do this fight. This is just a killer fight. So we just have to hope that Ninnyz gets through it cleanly.
And getting there with full health, like, really makes a big difference. Every hit Helmasaur King's gonna do. Oh no. Don't save and quit, Swerb. Just reset. Or mirror. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
So that's one of those places where you can press one button wrong and suddenly lose like 30 seconds or more.
Yeah. When you come out of that doorway, you actually need to be holding down, which is really counterintuitive because of the way the game works. Whenever it just like pushes you, if you're not on a spot you can actually stand on, it pushes you to the nearest like available tile that you are allowed to stand on. And so if you press up, it like keeps an out of bounds location as its nearest valid tile, which is weird, but it does. But if you hold down, it actually pushes you into the dungeon entrance, so that's why you want to hold down there. But actually, that was
made it through.
Solid fight. Yeah, only taking 1 hit. He did pick up some arrows, and I think he had it like as a contingency plan, probably. Hey, make sure to use the bow on.
Yeah, that's been gaining popularity as a safety for people who don't want to die on Helmasaur, but also don't want to spend the time getting the silvers. Is just spend a little bit time getting a lot of extra arrows on your way through Palace of Darkness, which you can. There's a bunch. None of them are fast enough to be part of the normal route, but if you just want to have the option of shooting 8 arrows at Helmasaur at the end, you can take that option.
Hmm. And it's actually pretty easy to get lost in Palace of Darkness. There's like,
Yes.
especially if you play more than one category, you just go through this dungeon so many different ways, and it's like, where do I go? What am I doing right now? So,
And all the different routes are like close to each other, but different enough that if you go the wrong way, you'll find yourself, trying to pick up the same key twice or running into a door and confused why it's not opening.
mhm. But
Ninnyz is on his way into Hera.
yep, and so now we're gonna do a different wrap actually on top of the mountain. That one also wraps you around to the top of the screen, but it puts you right into the entrance of Hera. There's actually a couple ways to do that, and the way Ninnyz chose to do it was actually the fastest way. Saves like a second, I think. 2 seconds? No, not 2 seconds. It's like 1 second.
2 seconds if you have a blazing fast boots clip.
Yeah, you have to be really good at it, which is kind of unreasonable for humans to be that fast, but it happens sometimes.
Now I've got the famous tile room, which is exactly as boring to play as it is, as it looks like it would be.
Nice hammer jump from Swerb.
Yep. He didn't get the heart from the Helma there, but he'll be fine, able to pick up 3 extra hearts, and he's got the silvers to make Helmasaur a little less scary.
Mm-hmm. I guess we didn't mention this, but also in Pod, we do want to grab all the bombs. We see Ninnyz is sitting at 10 bombs. We would get more if we could, but you're limited to 10, so that's all we get.
Yeah.
It's actually not going to be enough bombs to finish the run. We're going to have to pick up a few more, as kind of ridiculous as that sounds, but that is what's going to happen.
Yeah, we use bombs. We've already seen once we can use a bomb to clip in a wall. We're going to use that trick a number of times in the rest of the run, in addition to all the times the game demands that we bomb something out of our way. So we need quite a lot of them. Kind of classic Beetle Room not quite going the way you hoped.
Yeah, Beetle Room is like, Hera's full of rooms that are just really tough to consistently execute, and especially execute fast. And the beetles there, like I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of reading and reacting to RMG. Turns out the beetles have something like 32 separate RNGs for each of the beetles. So you have to kind of recognize, did I get a fast one? Did I get a slow one? How do I approach the room based off of that? And sometimes the difference between the fast one and the slow one is not obvious, and it's easy to screw up a little bit there.
Ninnyz with our second bomb jump of the run, going very well. That one is pretty scary because if you mess it up and fall into the pit, you're falling 2 floors, which is pretty punishing.
Yep.
I mean, again, not compared to some of the things you can do in this category, but
it's still
certainly want to be careful.
Like a 40-second time loss, it's pretty significant.
That's
But one of the great things about this category is you get to hammer Moldorm. This is actually really nice because it's 3 hits as opposed to 6, and it will skip the enrage phase at the end there, which just makes dealing with Moldorm much easier. And we can see,
yeah,
1 silver arrow finishes off Helmasaur King. That's why a lot of the danger is gone in that. It's still a little scary because the first phase is not exactly trivial, but it is much more manageable.
I have also personally had the experience of firing 1 silver arrow at Helmasaur, missing, and then noticing I'm out of arrows. Swerb, though, had plenty of backup arrows and also, fired in the correct place.
Yep. And then our next stop in this run is actually to go to Thieves Town. There's are no exits on Dark Death Mountain, so we're going to make our own. We're just going to go fast enough to fall right off the edge there and head on down to the Dark World proper area. It looks weird because it's loaded a different tile set, but it behaves exactly the same way. So we're just going to head on over to Thieves. And despite Link struggling to pull it open, you don't actually need gloves to open the entrance, which is excellent in terms of routing.
So generally, most categories of this game, at least full game categories, want to do Thieves Town pretty much as early as they really can, because Thieves Town, the dungeon item in Thieves Town is the Titan's Mitts, which allow us to pick up the heavy rocks. And once we have those, we can go and get the Tempered Sword, which is 1,000 times as powerful as the Fighter Sword. Really, it's only about 4 times as powerful, but it really just shreds enemies. And so we want that as soon as we possibly can. And it's a little bit scarier, but there's not a lot of difference doing it with the Fighter Sword versus the Master Sword. This is one of the sections of the game that's like fairly familiar to anybody who's like run any percent NMG before. You mostly do the same stuff. You just have to watch out because you can't kill anything to get it out of your way. Everything takes too many hits. So when you dash through enemies, they stay behind, they can get in your way a second time or whatever. But it's mostly fairly straightforward.
Jump from Swerb getting inside the little cage there. That flips the switch early. Doesn't save much to do this, but feels good. And it does save time to do it this way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thieves Town, there are a lot of things that surprisingly, like, you used to one-shot with the Master Sword and now you don't. So you just got to be a little bit more careful than you normally would. Luckily, it is relatively straightforward dungeon in terms of how enemies move and things like that. So it is possible to die, but I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah. The big interesting thing about Thieves Town in this category is that we have to actually do the basement. So there's this room that has a gray block in it. The gray block is one that we could lift if we had the sort of level 1 gloves, but we didn't get those. And so we can't lift it. But there is also a secondary route around where you can kill all of the enemies to open a door instead. And so we actually have to kill all the enemies because we can't lift the block, which makes this room, I think it's a pretty cool little execution room. I think most of the like kill rooms where you have to kill all the enemies to proceed in this game, I think are pretty cool, and it's nice to have this one that we don't see in other categories.
Yeah, and we see the hammer hitbox showing us how good it really is, which is to say not good at all, as those 2 hammers, which looked like they probably should have hit, didn't even come close. And that's just how it tends to work. And this conveyor room, actually, coming from below, it's not so bad. I don't know if it's just the way like human eyes work or whatever, but when you come from the top like that, it feels really scary. And
yeah,
you can see
it's
why.
really unfortunate that we have to do that room both ways. I don't like it either way. So we've got the maiden now. Out of Thieves Town is sort of a callback to Zelda at the beginning of the game, but this one doesn't give us advice and break wizard seals or whatever it is that Zelda's doing in the plot. This one is going to turn into the boss of this dungeon here in a moment. This is a boss that is absolutely terrifying when you play this game casually, but when you're speedrunning it, the whole thing's on a script. If you hit blind at the same places and times every time, it goes exactly the same every single time. You can get through it really fast, really safe, as soon as you've got the script down, which I would expect both of these runners to have little problem with that.
So yeah, the way blind actually works is that the heads are gonna fire, and every 4th shot I think is gonna track Link. So when you move, you actually are like kind of avoiding every 4th shot or whatever. But the other shots are just kind of fired in a random direction, which is why casually it's such a nightmare, because you don't really understand what's going on, and so the random ones seem like they're out to get you, but in reality they're just kind of going wherever.
Then got through it very clean. Meanwhile, Swerb is making his way into Thieves Town. I wasn't watching the end of it there because I was watching Ninny's screen, but it looks, based on his splits, that he had a very good Tower of Hera. And Ninnyz is going to be we're going to be doing our first collection trip. We're going to get the book, which we need to get the Ether medallion later, which is unfortunately still unskippable. And requires at least the Master Sword. So we've already been right next to it when we were doing Tower of Hera, but we couldn't get it then, so we have to sort of make our way back there a little bit later. And then we're also going to get the Tempered Sword, and that's going to be sort of the end of our weapons loadout for the game. The Tempered Sword is very powerful. You can kill everything with it really fast, and that's what we're going to do. Pretty much everything for the rest of the run, unless it's, a boss that requires an item or something.
Yeah. Tempered Sword, incredibly strong. I think we've mentioned it before, but it pretty much melts enemies. Almost every single regular enemy dies in one hit to it, and most bosses go down in like 4. It's very strong.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But we do have to stop and get the book. I think you mentioned that. Luckily, like, the great thing about this category is that we're allowed to do a lot of chores kind of together because of the way the light world and dark world are on top of each other. And so we just pop into the dark world, head to where we want to go, mirror back to the light world, and grab whatever secondary thing we need to grab while we're mainly focusing on our dark world segments.
Yeah, to sort of give the logic behind this, we skipped the book earlier because normally you need the book to get into desert, to get the glove to get up to Death Mountain, but we didn't need the glove to get up to Death Mountain, so we didn't have to get the book early. So we can just route it in anytime before we have to do Misery Mire, technically. So we get to do it. We get to pick the most convenient time for us, and that's where, like, this category is about 13 minutes ish faster than No Major Glitches. And a lot of that comes out of that kind of thing where it's not so much that we have to do less stuff, but that we can organize it really much more conveniently. Obviously, some of the clips and stuff also save a lot of time, but just doing things in the order that's more convenient to us rather than bound by what the game was designed to expect also saves a ton of time.
Mm-hmm. And just we actually do get to skip a few items, which are pretty big time sinks. One of those is the Quake Medallion, which we will not need. That's pretty out of the way. Another one's the Flute, which, despite being the only real fast travel option in this game, is also kind of out of the way. And so the Flute would add something like 1.5 minutes worth of time to the run, but between save and quits and just kind of being allowed to do basically whatever we want on the overworld, there's no real reason to grab the Flute anyway.
One really neat thing about this game is that we're in the dark world, but we still save and quit to the light world until Aghanim is dead. And we don't kill Aghanim. Aghanim is the last boss we kill before Ganon. So we get to save and quit to the light world the whole time, which means that we do have save and quit fast travel instead of always landing on the pyramid. Like if this game had been coded slightly differently to just like check if you're in the dark world and then put you on the pyramid instead of checking if Aghanim is dead, this whole category would look wildly different.
Yeah. And the pyramid, even though it's in the center of Dark World, is not centrally located at all with the way Dark World is laid out. So we don't really want to go there if we don't have to. Getting everywhere else in Dark World is very roundabout if you were to start at the pyramid every time.
Swerb, meanwhile, had an excellent blind fight. Ninnyz had no big troubles in the mummy room, which is many people's least favorite room of the game. This looks like it's a very smooth Skull Woods so far. It's easy to get hit by something and take a little damage and be way low on life going into the last part of Skull Woods, but everything's looking clean and above board for Ninnyz.
Mm-hmm. One thing that probably most runners are not going to be comfortable with is if you come into here in this category, we're actually down 1 health compared to in Skull Woods than you would normally be in like any percent for this game. It's like you think that 1 heart doesn't make a big difference, but we're at the part of the game where everything's going to start to hit hard, and almost everything in this dungeon hits for 2 hearts, including the boss. And so having that 1 extra health actually puts you at 9, which would let you take an additional hit compared to the 8 that we're currently at.
Yeah, it's shocking how big of a difference it is. When I started running this category after NMG, I thought all the clips were going to be the hard part, and then I started doing runs and dying in here over and over. Just that 1 extra safety heart being a whole extra hit is a huge deal. So you really want to go in here. We take 2 hearts of intentional damage, which means we're going into Mothula with 6, or we just saw Ninnyz get beat up a little by some enemies there. 5 hearts, 5 hearts is fine, but if he had taken 1 extra hit from a mummy, he would be really sweating this fight. Moth is a very RNG heavy boss. He takes no damage if you hit him into the spikes. That was quite a good fight. And so that fight can go south real fast if you don't get him dead.
Yeah, that was a really good fight. Excellent fight. Basically, if it's over before Moth has a chance to kind of go wild or get stuck in a corner or something, it's a good fight. That's all you're really looking for.
So we're gonna do while Swerb's getting his tempered sword and then going through his Skullwoods, Ninnyz is gonna go do our biggest shopping trip of the run. We're gonna go up to Death Mountain. We're gonna clip up into Hera for the second time, not the last time we're gonna do it. And we're gonna pick up the Ether Medallion, and then we're gonna go get the flippers. And because we don't have the flute, the fastest way to get the flippers turns out to be we run over to the very, very east side of Death Mountain, and then we do a clip down off the bottom of that screen, which you can't really get to normally. But it turns out that that screen is immediately above the entrance to Zora's domain. So we're just going to run over to the most out of way possible, and that's actually going to turn out to be right next to where we want to go, which is a pretty cool little bit of routing.
Yeah, really nice, because getting there otherwise is really not fun. It's like a 3-minute detour in any percent to get over to Zora's domain and get, like, the flippers and Quake. It's pretty
it's
rough.
Not near anything.
Yeah. So in this category, it's still a bit of a detour, but it is much nicer the way we can route it here.
It does run into the trouble where you have to contend with about 1,000 dead rocks that are trying to get in your way. Hopefully those will go nice. So we're making our way to desert eventually after we finish our shopping. And so this segment, we're pretty overpowered for desert. And so most of the danger in this category isn't so much dying as losing tons and tons of time to dead rock RNG or, your clip's not going well, or the bomber that we're about to encounter near Link's house, stuff like that. So this is a very, very easy to get hit at and knocked out of your way and blocked and stuff in here.
Yeah. And we can see Swerb taking a bunch of damage in that room. Honestly, like, when the mummies don't behave, there's not much you can do. You just kind of have to either kill them or take a bunch of damage or both or die sometimes. It's just like, it's a brutal room. I would not be surprised if he takes an intentional death here, because it would be the fastest way to refill his health after he grabs the fire rod. It would make the most sense.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do. We'll see what he chooses. Oh, he's going to brave it.
Okay. Needs to be careful here because he won't have iframes. Please slash to the right.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Might be hoping for a fairy. That bush has a good chance to drop a fairy, but no such luck.
Or, there's only one mini helmet you can reasonably kill, so you can't get you could get a hard drop. But I'm also not sure where he is in this prize pack. Maybe this beetle could drop a heart or something. There are a couple of hearts still he can grab, so it's not the end of the world. It's just one of those things that you're always a little bit scared in this dungeon of dying. And we see the bomber is chasing Ninnyz. Hopefully it doesn't chase him too much. Okay, good. The bomber
There's a couple different clips you can use to get through that little wall instead of running around and picking up the rock, but it's really easy to get just annihilated by that bomber if you go for them, and Ninnyz makes the entirely reasonable decision of losing a couple seconds instead of just getting destroyed by enemy RNG.
Mm-hmm. That bomber also hits for 2 hearts, which is kind of ridiculous, actually. I don't know who made that decision, but they did. Okay, so Swerb's got 3 hearts here. Hopefully his moth fight goes well. He can take 1 hit, which hopefully we don't have to. Interesting thing also, spins don't hurt moth with tempered sword because it's too strong. That actually counts as a good fight from Swerb.
Yeah.
Counts as gold sword damage, and spikes count as gold sword damage, and moth is just programmed to not take gold sword damage. So tempered spins are actually a good way to just waste an attack.
Ninnyz here going through desert. We get to skip a bunch of desert. We don't want the item, as we were talking about earlier. It's a worse glove. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't ruin the run if we picked it up, but it's out of our way, so we don't bother. And also we have the mirror, which normally you don't have. And since we're entering from the sort of second exit, we get to just do 1 run through the dungeon and then go run straight to the boss. So this dungeon sort of goes by in a blink. And then when we get to the boss, which is in NMG, maybe the hardest boss, certainly up there, just really, really hard to do fast. In this category, we get to do it with the fire rod instead of the bow. Swerb might actually opt to do it with silver arrows, and either of those is it's so satisfying, annihilating the light world bosses with super weapons instead of having to do them the way you're supposed to.
Fortunately, it doesn't really make the boss easier. It's all RNG. Like, sometimes the way this boss works is they just jump wherever they want. Sometimes they just jump completely away from you, and they're not in the air long enough for you to actually hit them. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because it's really frustrating when it does. But at least, as strong as we are with the equipment we have less opportunities for that to happen, which is nice. Sometimes we just get out of the fight, no issues. One cycle.
And assuming Swerb does use silver arrows, there's actually a guaranteed quick kill on Land Mollis if you get the timing right. Very clean out of Ninnyz. That was actually a really difficult RNG to get that quickly. That was the kind that looked like it was going to be a 2-cycle, but he did an excellent job cleaning it up.
Yep. When that first Landmo jumps to the left, you have to kind of make a split-second decision. Do I follow it, or do I just give up on it? Especially since it's the first one, it's not too bad if you just let it go. Because sometimes if you follow it, the one on the right says, hey, I'm going to go to the right, and then you can't hit that one at all. So it's just like, when you make that decision, you're never sure it's right. No matter which one you pick, it doesn't matter. Chase it or not chase it.
So now we're going into Mire. Mire is probably the coolest part of this run, in my opinion, and also very difficult and very long. So we're going to be doing a normal-ish Mire in the opening, but we're going to pick up an extra key very early, and we're going to end up using that key in an entirely different dungeon. So we're going to be doing, well, I guess for a little bit of explanation, we can load rooms from other dungeons while we're in this dungeon, and it behaves a lot like Cave State from earlier, where we're in a room from a different dungeon, but we still count as being in Mire. So we still have the keys that we picked up in Mire, and the big key from Mire, which we're going to get first. And so we're going to clip our way into Tower of Hera, which there's a convenient room in that right next to Mire on the Underworld map. And then from there, we're going to clip into Swamp, and we're going to get the hook shot really early. And so that's going to be a lot of clipping. The second one is quite difficult, and it's a whole lot of work, and it saves about 20 seconds. It's really a lot of work for 20 seconds, but it also looks really cool.
I think Duck told me 40 seconds earlier today, but yeah, it is less than it seems like it would be, but it's still worth it. We saw Swerb actually go for a spin speed clip there to get away from the bombers. I mean, pick your poison. That one is, I think, the fastest because it doesn't use a bomb. But you are kind of at the bomber's mercy. You have to contend with 2 of them instead of just 1, which is actually as bad as it sounds. But yeah, so Ninny's lighting the torches here. This is just going to move a wall, let us get the big key. And this is actually required to do the clip we want to do anyway. So that's nice. For whatever reason, if you don't move the wall, you can't do the bomb clip, which we still never figured out why. Yeah.
Huh. Today I learned.
Or at least I don't know why. Maybe we, as in like the Tassing community or somebody, knows why.
Well, we need to push the wall for the
big key.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now we're doing this loop-de-loop back around Mire in order to get back to that same torches room and do the bomb clip into Hera. Meanwhile, Swerve making his way into the back of Desert.
Yeah, so we're just going to make a quick stop in Hera, and then Hera's on our way to Swamp. Just the way the dungeons are connected. If we had a map of the underworld, it would make a lot more sense. But as it is, we just kind of go with it. But we're going to take this fairy room in Hera. It's going to warp us back to the top of Hera. We're actually going to fall down because we don't want to be up here. And we're going to set up for another clip here. Ninnyz will probably go for the bomb clip. Yeah, going for the bomb clip here.
So this one requires 2 adjustments, at least 2 adjustments, depending on exactly where you land, which has to do with like subpixels and stuff. So you have to memorize at least 3 different possible pixel cues that you can land on and how to adjust all of them. And you have to do at least 2 1-frames. It's a really difficult trick. It's very easy to misread your cue or accidentally get 2 frames of movement instead of 1, and have to start again, which costs you a bunch of time and a bomb. So good work to Ninnyz getting that first try.
This is a 60 FPS game, so a 1 frame buffer in this game is not trivial.
Yeah.
Like, it's relatively easy to get 2 frames, actually, on accident. But then, since we've never left Mire, you can just mirror after getting the hook shot, come right back to the entrance. It does mean we need to do this room again, which is probably one of the most demanding rooms in Mire. So to have to do it twice is a little bit rough, especially the second time through without beams is much tougher. And then
we have to do this room, where we pick up the cane and then we fall off of this cliff in order to get back to the locked door we came in and go through the, like, you messed up room. That door there is clearly there so that if you mess up and don't make it across the bridge, there's a safe way out of the room. But we sort of pretend we messed up, but we very much did it on purpose to get back to where we're going. Normally in like NMG, you would keep going through that room to the west and just walk straight up to a faster route to the boss, but we never got a chance to hit the pegs after we mirrored back in here, so we have to take a little bit of a longer path.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think we mentioned this, but when you mirror, it resets the dungeon to its default state, and in that case, the pegs are up when they need to be down for us to go through the right side there. But luckily, Mire has 2 ways we can go, and Ninnyz is not going to do the spooky glitch at all here, which is honestly pretty reasonable. It's not that significant a time save in this category compared to all of the other tricks that we have to do. It's surprisingly difficult, whereas in the any percent, the setup for it is pretty easy. But here, I'm just going to use a bomb to go into this room right here, which we never want to see, but sometimes, you know, take it easy, take it safe. It's fine to get there. Oh no.
Swerb eating a death. That's unfortunate.
Okay.
I hope he remembers to fix Dark World, fake Dark World.
Okay.
All right, he has another chance, but I really hope that he doesn't forget. So when you die in a Dark World dungeon without having killed Aghanim, you get into this weird state called fake Dark World, where I don't really know what's happening. But basically at the end of it, if he gets all the way to Vitreous and kills him, he will then find out that the crystal's not going to drop, which is really, really bad. That is actually just a lock. The only thing you can do at that point is reset your console and go back and do it again. Oh man. Vitreous getting the better of Ninnyz too. This is a very difficult dungeon. Vitreous is a very difficult boss. Yeah, you see Ninnyz there fixing fake Dark World. You just go outside and mirror once, and you go from the Dark World to the Dark World. For some reason, that again, I'm not the guy who knows all the fancy tech stuff, but you absolutely have to do it.
Since we have not beaten Aghanim yet in this run, the game actually thinks we're in Light World anytime it like gives us a reset point. So that's what you have. That's why we have to correct fake Dark World there. There's only, I think, 2 places where it matters, but the places where it matters, it will hard lock you, like just straight up. We'll have to reset the game to get out.
There's a couple other places where it loses you time.
Yeah.
But there's only this one, and I don't remember what the other one is. Ice, right? Mm-hmm. You are absolutely locked and have to reset your console. So, as I said, Swerb does have another chance. Since we mirror back to the beginning of the dungeon after getting the hook shot, that is a good opportunity to fix fake Dark World. You already have the mirror equipped. You're right back at the beginning. So I really hope that he's just planning on doing it then and doesn't not know about it or didn't forget about it.
Yeah. And actually, Vitreous is another big reason to get silver arrows.
Yeah, it's a good point.
if you go for the non-silver arrow strat, you have to take at least 4 hearts of intentional damage, but 4 is if you play the fight extremely well. Typical is going to be 5 hearts of intentional damage. Otherwise, you kind of have to play around with the eyeballs, which you don't really want to do since they hit for 4 hearts. We've mentioned things hurt a lot in this game, and we're definitely seeing it here. But with silvers, you just kind of shoot at the eyeballs, and they die in 1 arrow, which makes it pretty easy, pretty safe.
Yeah, silvers don't technically save time over an optimal fight with the tempered sword here, but they do make it way easier, way safer.
So it might look like Ninnyz is standing in a bad spot, but actually, for whatever reason, the rightmost pixel doesn't actually damage you. So you can stand on the very edge there and you'll be fine.
Alright, good work by Ninnyz, realizing he was in a lot of danger, taking that fight extremely safe and getting through. Picking up his crystal, which drops because he fixed Fake Dark World. And there we go, yeah, so Swerb was just planning on doing it now. Good for him. It's a good time to do it. I'm very, very happy he didn't forget.
Yeah, just nervous because it's easy to forget, especially since a lot of times if you're just doing a non-race situation, you're just doing PB attempts or whatever, you die and you just kind of reset the game or the console and you say, you know what, who cares?
Yeah.
So, good recognition from him. And he's probably less concerned about health just because of the silver arrows. And he also has 20, which is a ton of arrows for the rest of the run.
If you silver arrow Vidi, it actually costs 11 arrows.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
he's
you're
not
only
going to have any
use
problem, but it's
6
quite a
at
bunch.
Ice Armos as opposed to 18. So,
That's true.
like, your arrow count with silvers is like it's still pretty strict because you use them in more places than you would normally. It's pretty solid teleport from Ninnyz. Yeah, so we're going to Swamp next. It's actually the closest dungeon to Myra right here. There's just a mountain in our way, and we're just gonna hop right over it with more of our kind of teleportation device that is Link, and head right on over to Swamp.
Swamp is kind of a little break in this category most of the time. Since we got the hookshot in Mire with all those fun clips, we don't have to do anything on the left side, and we can just sort of walk. We've already done the first water fill, so we just kind of run straight to the boss. We stop to pick up 1 key, and that's it. The most interesting thing in this category, in this dungeon, in this category, is we get to do the pretty recently found trick called Diver Down, which is we take a sort of new route through. Instead of pushing the statue onto a switch, we take the other door and we... Oh, interesting. Swerve's doing the old spooky setup. Sorry, and then we clip into a rail and we sort of jump down into some water that has a little bit of odd behavior and lets us just sort of walk on the ground as if there were no water. And that ends up being a bunch faster and actually also easier than doing it the old way, which is always what you want to hear. You can save time with a safer strat.
Yeah. I mean, safety in this game is oftentimes actually our #1 priority. There are a lot of strats that most runners opt to do just because, hey, 30 frames to make it 100 times more reliable, definitely worth it.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if that block's in the right place.
Now, it does require a couple of 1-frame buffers, so it's not super easy, but good job from Ninnyz there.
That trick is the nice property that you can retry it basically for free. You're not expending any resources. The block is still where you want it to be. You can basically try as many times as you want before getting the 1-frame input and still save time. It saves 7 seconds or something if you do it optimally, and it takes 1 second to retry. So it's pretty much always a time save. Obviously, you want to do it as fast as possible, but you don't feel too bad about getting a 2nd or 3rd or even 4th try.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up on Argus here, who I don't know if we're going for quick kill. No quick kill. So this is a fairly straightforward boss with the tempered sword. You just sort of annihilate these eyes and then spin them a couple times.
Yeah, this fight is actually one of the reasons why we get Tempered Sword. Is because this fight is so much easier tempered compared to Master Sword.
Yes.
Like in this fight alone, probably the difference between a good tempered fight and a good Master Sword fight is probably close to 10 seconds. So,
Oh my god, if you could do this fight only 10 seconds slower with Master Sword, I certainly can, and I've tried. It's really hard with Master Sword.
I think the best fight I've ever had with Master Sword was something only like 6 seconds slower than an optimal tempered fight, but like that's 1 in a million RMG, and it's never gonna happen in a run. And it's also just 10 times harder. So Master Sword sucks. Tempered Sword, great. The more we get to use it, the better.
So after this, Ninnyz, I don't know how he's going to get into Ice Palace. There is a wrap that saves, I don't know, 12 seconds or so, but also introduces a hard lock possibility, which a lot of players, even if they would go for in a PB attempt, might not go for in a race. Especially Ninnyz, if he's watching the restream or if he's got Swerb stream pulled up, he knows that he's far enough ahead that he can play it a little safer, so we'll see what option he goes for here.
Looks like we are going for the
planning to wrap.
Yeah, and this saves about 6 to 8 seconds, so it's pretty significant, especially if you're going for a PB attempt here. But it does require pressing 2 buttons on the same frame, which is forbidden tech, but we get a first try, so great job from Ninnyz.
And no problem, no hard lock, and no soft lock.
Yeah.
You can actually also soft lock yourself after you make it through the hard lock risk, which is just atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
Very risky trick.
And one thing that we're seeing Swerb do is actually stock back up on bombs and arrows. We saw Ninnyz actually stock up on arrows as well. Swamp's kind of our last place to really refill any consumables we might need. Everything else is really out of the way. So good recognition from them, knowing what they need to finish the run.
Yep, Swerve coming up on Diver Down while Ninnyz is coming up on our other new trick, Icebreaker. Excellent Icebreaker.
Icebreaker, however, is not quite so free to retry. Mostly what you're worried about there is the mana usage if you have to place a few Samaria blocks. We are going to need full magic to beat Cold Stare, and there's not much actually in the way of refills on our way there, so we don't want to use too much if we can. But first try, obviously not going to be any issues.
Yeah, first try is great. Swerve had a... Well, he splashed once, but then he got a first try Diver Down after that, which is excellent.
Looks like he is going for the
quick kill. Looks like he dropped it though.
Which is...
The quick kill on Argus is really, really difficult.
It's one of the most difficult things. Not only... I mentioned that 2 buttons on the same frame is forbidden tech, but you actually start this fight by pressing 3 buttons on the same frame, or holding 1 and pressing 2, which is pretty uncomfortable to do.
Yeah.
But Ninnyz getting into the Cold Stare fight, which... Okay, getting bopped a little bit.
Careful, he's 1 hit away. If he runs into one of these Cold Stare puffs, that's it.
I like the strategy here of focusing down 1 at a time and just trying to stay safe from the others. The less things that are on screen, the easier it is to kind of focus and avoid things. So, really good strategy there.
So, that's not the Cold Stare fight you want to see, but if they get away from you, that's a good example of how to clean them up. Gets through that safely, and is on his way into grabbing the Ice Rod and heading up to Turtle Rock. Swerb finishing up Swamp at the same time. They're both sort of staring at these crystal cutscenes, mashing text. Mashing the Swamp text is one of the least enjoyable parts of the run.
Yeah, you feel like it's over because the music starts to loop and you still have like 15 seconds. It's really bad.
Let's see how he opts to go in. Oh, he looks like he's going for the mirror wrap too. Wow, these guys are brave. Doing this in races is... palms get a little sweaty.
Yeah, but if it's what you've practiced, a lot of times it's probably better to just stick with what you know than try to wing things, especially in a race setting. But like Fox mentioned, we have one item left to pick up, and it's Ice Rod. And after beating Ice Palace, this is the closest we're ever going to get to Ice Rod Cape. So we're just going to make a quick stop there.
Meanwhile, Swerb with a first try mirror wrap as well. I can't believe both of them did it. I wish I knew their secrets.
Yeah, and no locks either, which is, like, to me, that mirror wrap is one of the most scary things in the whole run.
Oh, yeah. It's about a 15-minute time loss. No joke. It would actually have been less because they died in Mire, fortunately. But it's still, even so, it would have been 8-minute time loss if they had missed the mirror wrap. Swerve coming up on his icebreaker.
Yeah, this requires a 1-frame buffer as well, which, as we've mentioned, 60 FPS game, not easy. You also have to get door state here. Yo, good
Second try, not too bad.
Didn't use too much magic there, so we're going to be good for cold stare, at least in terms of magic. But to get to Turtle Rock, since we never picked up the Quick Medallion, we actually do have to cheat our way into the dungeon. But we're not going to cheat our way into the front because that's actually slower. We're just going to go all the way to the back with another mirror wrap here. This one also is actually much less of a hard rock risk, which is good. And we've also just saved and quit, so there's like no real scary thing going on with it other than 2 buttons at the same time obviously being impossible. Even though we just got it first try here as well.
Yeah, my enthusiasm for 3 out of 3 first try mirror wraps is not at all faked. That is impressive. Going through Turtle Rock backwards is interesting. Most of the rooms are easier and safer, and we get to skip the really scary rooms like the Chomp's room in this route. We're coming up on Crystal Roller Room, which is probably the hardest room in this category in the dungeon. You gotta sort of do some timing and beat a roller while hitting a switch a bunch of times. Or you can just take it safe and not even try beating the roller, which is a very reasonable choice in a run, especially in a race.
Since everything hurts.
Yeah,
the
that probably
does
only
3
costs...
hearts of damage. The Pokies do 4. Trinex does 4. Like,
yeah.
And you come in on only 7 hearts. It's just 2 mistakes and you're dead.
And you immediately take 2 hearts on purpose, by the way. So you generally only have 5 hearts in here, plus whatever you pick up. If you're lucky, you will get a fairy, which is pretty common because you kill a Poke and they drop fairies pretty commonly. But it's very easy to just be staring down Trinex with no room for error. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, Trinex is a largely scripted boss, so if you sort of land the kill the way that you always do in practice and usually do in runs, it's not a big problem, but it's still a little nerve-wracking if you're low on life. Ninnyz getting the fairy there, which is nice.
Fairy and the magic. Normally we'd be like, oh, magic's really nice because it'll save us a little bit later. It doesn't matter in this category. You're just like, oh, whatever, magic. But yeah, so you get the big key and then you can mirror straight back to the back entrance there. It's pretty quick actually, and then Trinex is right here. So this dungeon is much faster than it typically is.
Yep.
And then Swerb is actually down a bomb. So
yeah, he's got a teleport.
See what he does here.
Well, I guess he could pick up one of the other backup bombs.
But the bombs are a little bit out of the way in Turtle Rock. So as long as he remembers to get the backup bomb in Turtle Rock, then we'll be fine. Or if he doesn't remember, we'll technically get a bomb in GT before we need to use it, but it makes the room not flow as well, and you put yourself at risk if you don't kind of handle that room. You don't have a bomb going into that room.
Yeah, it's definitely better to have one. That's my least favorite of the backup stuff to pick up. Ninnyz, meanwhile, pretty clean Trinex fights. Sword making his way up the mountain, getting beat up by boulders because, you know, putting the death in Death Mountain. Oh, I don't think that's what he meant to do. Yeah, there we go. I think he got... So we go up and we do a clip into Hera or into the Dark World portal below Hera off screen. several times in this run, and it's really easy to run over there, get all the way through the clip, and then be like, wait a second, that's not the screen I expected to see right now, and I have to go back and do it again and go to the right place.
Also, he got like pushed into the edge by a boulder right at the same time, so it's easy to just kind of get distracted by that too.
Yeah.
It's just like a lot going on that if you're not cognizant of, pretty easy to get totally screwed up.
So normally after beating Turtle Rock and having all 7 crystals and whatever, you just sort of run over to Ganon's Tower, but in this category we can't do that because Turtle Rock is closed, and we also don't really want to do that because we have a faster route in anyway. So we're going to be doing a similar clip. Oh, Swerb getting himself stuck inside the wall there on the way into TR.
We do see the danger of the Turtle Rock mirror wrap, which is it's pretty easy to get locked into that slope right there. The mirror wrap itself, not the scary part of that, but actually setting up the mirror wrap is what's kind of the nerve-wracking part of it.
Yeah, that's one of those places where you have to press like bizarre buttons that don't really make any sense. And so like once you've sort of done it enough times that your hands just do it without you thinking about it, it's not like a problem, it's not difficult, but it's very easy to just like press a button while not thinking, just you think you're playing the game normally and you just press the button to go where you want to go. But you actually have to press this bizarre sequence of buttons to get where you're trying to go in this particular state. And he's doing a dance with the key there.
Yeah, trying to optimize his key pickup there, but picking it up slowly is better than not picking it up at all. So that's always the danger we run into this game. It's like we try to like optimize down to the pixel level, but then, when you're that precise on things, you leave yourself a lot of room for mistakes as well.
Yep. Ninnyz had his second try went a lot better. Got into Turtle Rock, no problem. Again, a first try mirror wrap. We're 4 for 4. Truly excellent. Taking what I have to imagine is intentional, yeah.
Gonna give him back up to 7 hearts, which is much better than 1.
Yeah. Ninnyz making his way through the basement of GT, which is sort of a big puzzle. It doesn't look like one because we already know the solution, but it's sort of a puzzly thing where you have to go find Ice Armos and kill them in order to get access to the big key.
Mm-hmm. And also, we do have our choice of key. There's one of 3 separate keys we can choose to pick up. Ninnyz opts for Torch Key, which is the slowest. But once again, when we talk about slow, we're talking about a difference of like 1 or 2 seconds compared to the fastest. But it's also the safest of the 3 keys we can choose to get.
Peg Puzzle Key was the slowest.
I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong.
Anyway.
I don't know. It's like
the difference is definitely down to what you can do comfortably. Like GT is long and extremely difficult in large parts of it. If you want to spend a second getting a safer key and then spend the other, 7 to 8 minutes of the dungeon dealing with all the hard stuff, that is extremely understandable.
Right. Like a typical good split is like, this is typically one of the longest splits in the game. Palace of Darkness is actually the longest split. That tends to be right around 8 minutes if everything goes well. But not all of that is like pure execution type stuff. GT is something like 7.5 minutes of just pure execution. It is a brutally difficult split.
Yeah. You saw Ninnyz on his way in here talk to the old man in the cave for extra hearts. If you're going for like pushing really top times, you just don't do that, and you come into Ganon's Tower with only 7 hearts. But if you're newer, or if you're in a race and you're not, looking to die in GT, many players opt to get the full hearts because going into Ganon's Tower with only 7 hearts is extremely scary.
Especially since we do opt to take a lot of intentional damage in this split, and you will take a lot of unintentional damage as well. I mean, getting through Ganon's Tower damage list, I've done like maybe twice in hundreds of runs. So you can't expect it at all.
Ninnyz coming up on the gauntlet while Swerb is taking care of Trinex. Looks like it got a little away from him, but he's got enough hearts to... Oh no. Swerb actually I guess, missed a couple shots and ran out of magic, which there's no way to do anything but warp back to the beginning of the dungeon, either by dying or by mirroring.
I think maybe he had taken it's a little bit faster to mirror, but I think since he had taken a couple hits, he probably thought it was reasonable to just, you know what, take the death, get a health refill, and give it another try. It's actually been a pretty solid gauntlet from Ninnyz. Those are not the 5 hardest rooms in GT, but they are certainly close. Especially to have them all back to back like that. And then we get to redo Landmo, and then here we can see, you know, what we were mentioning earlier, how just sometimes they move in ways that you can't really deal with. It'd be unreasonable to deal with. They actually spawn in the exact same locations. It's almost the exact same fight. So, you know, handled the first fight extremely well. The second fight, I feel like you also handled it pretty well, but then Landmoles just did their own thing and got away from him.
Yeah, you have to fight Landmolas twice in this run, and you can technically one cycle both of them, but if you get a combined 3 cycle, that generally doesn't feel too bad. What do you think is the hardest room in GT if it's not the Gauntlet? Aga 2, I guess?
Well, aside from Aga 2, I actually think it's this Torches room that Ninnyz is in right here.
This is a tough one.
To consistently beat the fire bar and get a lamp dash out there is one of the hardest things to do. It's just another pure execution room. And beating the fire bar there, Ninnyz didn't get the lamp dash out. You're losing like 20 frames, but I think we mentioned a couple times, a lot of people were looking to save his frames.
Oh, ow. Swerb got another Trinex death. And he's coming up here on Moldrum 2. It's pretty easy. It's one slash and one spin. If he's feeling really, really mean, he can knock you down, but generally with Tempered Sword, it's not a big problem. Then we're coming up on Aga 2, which is sort of deceptively difficult boss. It's one of those rooms that you're never really going to die in it unless something goes just ridiculously wrong, but it's really easy to lose 12, 18 seconds in it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like the way the cycles work, if you get past like the 3rd or 4th cycle, they start to get desynced and it just gets incredibly difficult to deal with without just kind of face tanking some damage and being like, I'm just gonna do it like this.
That was an excellent beginning.
Good triple to start. We only need to land 6 hits, so landing 3 in the very first cycle there is excellent. It's actually the best you can do. So great job from Ninnyz. And a 3 cycle is, honestly, I don't know anybody that would be upset with a 3 cycle.
No, I mean, sometimes you can't get a 2 cycle. I was watching the Trinex fight for part of that, so I didn't see if that was the case. But every 3 cycle is a good Aga 2 fight.
No, he got a blue ball, actually. So a 2 cycle was not possible based off of the RMG he was.
So now you have to fight against your muscle memory of running straight into that pit, because we still have one more dungeon to do. We have not yet done Aghanim and Aghanim's Tower.
Yeah, and whoever decided to call this a dungeon, I have a bone to pick with them, because it's not fun.
I kind of like doing it with like the fire rod and the tempered sword and stuff. It's annoying having to fight Aghanim, but the tower part is cool.
Yeah, dungeon itself here, not too bad. Normally you'd come in here with Master Sword, no real equipment. I guess the bow is your best weapon here. But here we've got Fire Rod, which is extremely strong, and Tempered Sword, which is also extremely strong. So these guards don't stand a chance, and we'll be able to get through the rooms pretty easily. The tower itself, very rare to see more than like a couple seconds of variance when a runner does it. But Aghanim, unfortunately, is completely uncontrollable RNG that will just decide how much time you're going to lose today.
The problem with Aghanim isn't even that there's so much RNG. It's that there's nothing to do about it. There's nothing to do, period. You just sort of stand there, and it's so easy that it feels like you're just watching it happen. Mm-hmm. And you're like, all right, well, I'm on PP pace. Do I get it or not?
Yeah. But using the fire rod here, one-shotting those guys, and then you can see the tempered sword also one-shotting. Like, normally those guys are very annoying to deal with, but here, no problem.
Oh, interesting. Switching to boomerang for the end of it.
Yeah, opting to do kind of the normal strat for that room, which is technically a little bit slower, but we're talking on the order of 1 second once again. So whatever you're comfortable with is really the strat you should go with.
Yeah. I think actually that room is fastest with the boomerang, but it forces you to do an extra menu is the only problem.
Yeah, I think basically every strat in the game to get through Agate Tower is something like 20 frames difference or something. Like, it's completely negligible if you do the whole tower with whatever items you want. So but yeah, here we're just gonna have to kind of watch Ninnyz, see how much time the game decides to lose him today in this split.
Some people
see
some people like that about this category, where you get to the end and then you find out if it was a run or not. It takes all the pressure off. You never get too attached to a run. In NMG, this fight happens about a third of the way through the run, and so if Aghanim gives you really good luck, you have this like pressure on yourself. You're like, it might be a week before I see 1 or 0 blue balls again. Like, I gotta make it count. In this category, you have to do all of the hard stuff, and then you find out. And so that's, for some people, that's like a weight off their shoulders. For other people, they're like, it's like so crushing that they prefer having the RNG up front instead. People are very split on that.
But yeah, so here we're just gonna get, like, you can see the reflectable attacks, much like in the Aga 2 fight. You can actually send back to Aghanim to damage him, and the ones that just blow up, nothing can be done about that. You're just losing time. It's gonna take 6 hits once again to get through here, so I never count blue balls because I've seen enough of them in my life that I don't care.
Yeah, I've been watching Swerb a little more, showing off the Silver's Ice Armos fight. Didn't quite get them all at once, but still definitely faster than doing it.
It's actually surprising with Silver's there, because you killed them so fast, it's not as easy as you would think. Because you have to like do a lot more maneuvering on the ice than you do with the regular arrow strat. So
that's one of those rooms where you can't just wing it. You kind of have to have a strat if you want to do it fast.
Mm-hmm. But I think based off the cycle, that looked like 3 blue balls from Ninnyz. At least I think. I always, like I said, I never count them, but I always just look at the timer and I'm like, oh, how much time do you lose? You can figure it out that way. But now we're walking. Yeah, again in fight here. It's actually pretty safe coming in with full health, 14 hearts. Normally you get here with something like 5, so you're always a little bit scared.
And then he's not getting the 1-in-1. You can, with some difficult, pretty precise slashes, you can actually get through both of his first 2 phases before he does this warp where he warped to the top left.
But it does get through the second phase right away, which is pretty good. Especially when you have to do slashes on his backup like that. It's 12 hits per cycle, and it's actually not that easy to get 12 hits in once Ganon is like no longer in a controllable spot. So, and then 4 hits to get through phase 3 here, and then it's going to be 12 spins to finish out the run. But before we start going for those spins, we are going to light this left torch before the right one goes out, and the right one's never going to go out, so we only need to light the left one.
Swerb had a little bit of trouble with the gauntlet, but got through it with not in any mortal danger here.
For the Ganon, we're looking for 3 nice one cycle ammo. Looking for 3 spins per torch lighting. It's not always easy to get all 3. Some warps are pretty difficult. If you do less than 2, nice cape spin, then you actually run the risk of running out of magic if you use just the fire rod. But Ninnyz is having a pretty solid fight here. I don't expect that to happen.
In this category, you actually come in with full magic. So you can miss quite a lot of spins before you have to worry too much. In general, if you're doing the optimal stuff coming into Ganon, you come in with with only half magic, which makes it quite tight. It's a little bit safer here.
GG's to Ninnyz, coming in with an official time of 1:18:54. This category is pretty brutal, actually. We didn't have too many disasters, just the one Meyer death, so otherwise, pretty good run from Ninnyz.
Yeah, that was really it, wasn't it? But that, that alone cost like almost 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's about a 3-minute death.
Yeah, it's an easy death, and it's a brutally punishing death. So I don't know if he's gonna come in and chat with us. Looks like he will be. Just a minute here.
Oh, and then we see Swerb fell off at Moldorm. It's, Moldorm's just a bad boss. No matter how overpowered you get, brutal.
So we've got Ninnyz in here now. How's it going? Congrats.
Hey, thank you.
That was a quite a strong run, actually, with the obvious exception of the death at Vitreous. The rest of that looked good.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good about it, and then as soon as I died to Videos, I was like, come on, man.
It looks like, based on your splits, you recovered 30 seconds after Meyer, so...
Yeah, I was gaming out of my mind. When I was in Meyer, I was looking at everything, and then when I died, I was like, well, I have to do everything, because, like, as this run was going, I was like, you know what, we're going steady, let's not push it with all the glitches, maybe just, play it safe and get into ice the easy way. Died at Meyer, and I was just like, oh, that has to go out the window. We have to do all the things.
Were you watching Swerb?
I was not.
Okay, so he also took, actually, a death in Meyer. So when he had a couple issues, unfortunately. A lot of really good stuff, but then a couple, there's a reason we call it all disasters. But I was sort of a little surprised that you took the Meyer wrap after that, because you were ahead after that because of Swerb also taking a death in there, so it makes sense that you weren't watching.
Yeah, I was just like, if there was any time to make up, I wasn't sure how strong Swerb felt about doing like the mirror wraps. And speaking of mirror wraps, the mirror wrap that I had into T-Rock was so incredibly smooth. I was blown away how okay, I got all the things.
Yeah, both your mirror wraps are great, actually.
Yeah. Swerb showing off silver arrow strats in Aga Tower, by the way. And a little bit of contrast to the Fire Rod. They're kind of the same, since everything in here just completely dies when you hit it with any of our gear. But the silver arrows don't use any magic, and a little bit faster in some rooms.
RMG stands for Restricted Major Glitches. That is, okay, you can see the bot command, yeah. It allows some glitches, but not the strongest.
Yeah, if you just watch this and you're thinking, wow, what is restricted after seeing all the stuff we did in here, this game is incredibly broken if you really want to break it. There are like 4 whole categories of glitches that we excluded, and we still were fine doing all of this ridiculous stuff.
I think for the most part, it's mainly just YBA and EG.
And wrong warps. It's no EG, no wrong warps, no door glitches.
Mm. All of those
you could say
pretty
that
obviously
Abra
break the
Down
game,
is
though.
kind of a door glitch. I mean, you are kind of in the door state. I don't know. I don't know enough to talk about this.
A lot of people recently have been saying that door glitches is not really a term that a lot of people that know all the details like. They like to call it transition corruption, where you're moving between rooms and you're doing something to corrupt that transition between rooms.
Yeah.
Nice hook speed in
So the icebreaker stuff, you're using door state to kind of push yourself through the block or through the wall there. But the transition glitches, what happens is basically if you either break a transition by pushing yourself with a Samari block through it, or you do something like drink a potion on the same frame that you cross a transition boundary, then the game actually transitions you like multiple rooms away or something like that. So it just the way the game handles it is very different, which is why they're different classifications. But did you have any? Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering if Ninnyz had any other thoughts on his run.
Outside the fact that I can't pick up that small key in G Tower, I must have gone back 4 times for it. I was like, I got nope. I was like, what is going on? I was losing my mind.
I know, between Link's hitbox not being as big as it looks and the key's hitbox not being as big as it looked like you picked it up like 3 separate times.
Yeah.
I feel like it's literally just that key.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that we're really trying to like really optimize, like only touching it with 1 pixel of Link though, so it feels the worst out of all of them.
I just dash when I'm on top of it if I'm doing torch key. Just start a dash where it's about to fall. It's fine. Swerb coming up on his Ganon fight here in a second. I wasn't counting the blue balls, but it wasn't an egregious amount.
Looks like it was... Actually, I'm not sure.
It's hard to tell.
He doesn't split.
Yeah.
His blue balls and his tower split, so it's hard to tell. But yeah, hoping to see a 1-on-1 here. Even though you come in with 14 hearts, cannon still hurts.
Yeah,
you can't take too many intentional
hits.
hits. Yeah.
He got it though. Very nice. And we'll get to see the silvers fight, which is faster and easier than the silverless fight. This is where you recoup, 20 to 30 seconds worth of the time spent getting the silver arrows. You sort of get your investment back here for the most part.
Yeah, on average it's about 30, I think. Pretty significant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really big deal. Nice double.
Nice double hit. Okay. Smartly recognizing that you probably couldn't get a double there, but he only had 1 arrow left, so saved it for the other one.
The
Good fight
silvers
from
and
Swerb.
spins damage do actually stack, so you can do 3 silvers and 3 spins, but you don't want to if you don't have to. So GG's to Swerb. Let's see, coming in with a 1:27.13 SRL time. I'm not sure if he's going to join us or not.
He is mashing through the text here to get to the credits. Maybe he's just like, let's just see the credits and get it over with.
Yeah, it's kind of unkind of this game to force us to text mash after we're already done.
Oh, yeah. Make sure to... I mean, you got restream, so it's probably not an issue, but just make sure to reset so the admins can see you finally. And
Oh,
games
yeah.
played. Which might be another reason why he's mashing through, because you do have to mash through for the game to save.
I actually just learned recently that apparently around the time the Master Sword part
Yeah,
of the
once it
credits plays.
fades to black, I'm pretty sure.
All right, it looks like Swerb is not going to be joining us for an interview today. So, yeah, I don't know. You got anything else to say? Thanks for putting on a good show for us tonight, Ninnyz, and congratulations on winning the race.
Yeah. And thank you
guys so much for commentating.
It's my pleasure.
And just thank you to ZSR for letting us take over a little bit and do a lot of all dungeons today.
Yeah, we've got more all dungeons coming up over the next few weeks. We're wrapping up the group stages over the coming week, and then we'll have, I don't know exactly how long it is, but the bracket will be going on over the next few weeks, and at least early in the bracket before players start dropping out, I think we're going to try to get a lot of runs up on the restream here as well. So hopefully y'all will come and check out some more of those runs.
Any last comments? GG's to both Ninnyz and Swerb. I understand why he wouldn't want to come in. He had some unfortunate happenings during his race. So, but thanks Dow and Foxlist for doing commentary tonight. Much appreciated. And
Absolutely.
I think we do have a couple matches tomorrow. 10 p.m. Eastern, definitely. I think is it Astor? Is that Astor versus? It's Astor versus Dow. If
tomorrow at 10.
Yes, 10 p.m. Eastern, and there is another match scheduled at 12 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's Hacksaw versus Chimo. I think we're still waiting to see if we can get commentators for that one as well. And I think there might be another one on Sunday, and there's going to be some more next week as well. So we hope to see you then. I guess, any last words? Or I think I'm going to send you over to a match that's in progress now. I believe it's Parisian Player versus, is it So 15?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Again, thanks GG's, Ninnyz, and Swerb, and thanks again Dow and Foxlisk, and hope to see you again soon. Have a good night, day, morning,
Take care, all.
wherever you are. Thanks. Bye.